What's up YouTube? For tonight's video I have a top 10 worst Pokemon sprites. Haven't done one of these for like 3 weeks, so let's do it. Okay, let's roll this the same way I roll my theme teams. I want you to leave a comment there with the top 10 you'd like me to cover. Has to be Pokemon related, it can be anything. Actually, I'm going to regret saying that, but it is. And you get your little shout out at the beginning of the video, just like my theme team. So yeah, that's a little incentive, and I do appreciate what everyone would like to see, and that's a big part of my channel, and I do appreciate everyone's input there. Okay, just bear in mind, this video is all my opinions, so please, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. If you don't like something, well, that's cool, but yep, that's how it rolls with these videos, and I'm sure most people will understand that. So there's a lot of cool sprites out there, and bad ones, and I'm really targeting Gen 1 here. So for Gen 10, for number 10, oh my god, Gen 10, we have Arcanine. This guy looks pretty much, first impression to me was it looked like it smoked 2 kilograms of pot. Its sprites actually improved over the gens. It started to get upright at the end in Gen 6, which was pretty cool. Its back sprite was just, what the fuck is that? It doesn't even look like it at all. They did actually improve it over the Gen 2 onwards, and it was quite similar until they actually got it, in Gen 5, we actually seen the whole back sprite of Arcanine, which was pretty cool. Anyways, this definitely puts Arcanine on my top 10 worst sprites. It looks derpy, but it does look a bit cute. I will admit that one. Coming in at number 9 is Articuno. Now, this was a terrible sprite in my opinion. If you look at it, the eye is nearly as big as the head, and don't even get me started on the snake tail that's coming out of its ass. Look at it. It's got like an eye, look right there, and you can see 2 mouths there. That looks terrible. Its sprite did improve a little bit. That was a really cool sprite, nice body proportion. It's got its claws in there, nice, and the wing proportion was good too. As the gens went on, it did actually improve, as like most of them did, and it's quite interesting how its wings were mostly tucked in or held upright until like the previous 6th gen, where they actually had them right out soaring, which was pretty cool. Then again, the animations were moving as well. They were, the 3D function there. Okay, so we have its back sprite. That was pretty standard, but quite average in my opinion. It was nice in Gen 2. They're starting to get the hang of it there. Bring the wings into it. I definitely thought they should have brought the wings into it earlier on. That's pretty cool how they had the whole body there. But of course, sprites and things like this were very on technology and the games, in my opinion. This definitely puts Articuno on my top 10 worst sprites. That is terrible. It's the snake tail and the eye. Oh my god. Sliding in at number 8 is Ekans. Looking at its sprite is pretty bad. Like, look at its mouth. Its mouth is completely out of proportion with its head. It's so big. It's got like a duck face, and not to mention like a little snowman on its tail. Like, look at that shit. On Pokemon Yellow, it actually improved, dramatically. Its tail actually looked like a tail. Its mouth wasn't like fucking like a black hole, and it was pretty similar on all the gens, but interestingly in 6th gen they turned it back to its old one, how it's actually in a little coil, which was pretty cool, I reckon. Its back sprite, that looks like a little purple man. It looks like a purple man. It looks like a purple Slender Man. That's all I can think of. It's in Gen 2, they did a much better job of it, and it stayed pretty similar in those ones as well. Ekans was pretty boring as a sprite, but its first ones were absolutely horrible in Gen 1. This definitely put it on like the top 10 worst list for me. Mainly because the body proportion, or head proportions in this, the tail wasn't all that bad, it was just the head proportion. I mean, the snowman tail, I could let that slide too, but just the massive black hole of a mouth, it would just look wrong. Number 7, we have Lickitung. I like this Pokemon, but damn, look at its tongue. It's got like an ass on the end of it. It's like an anorexic tongue. Where's its big flopping, flowing tongue? It's so skinny. It's like its arm. That's how it's meant to be. It should be like that. In Gen 1, Pokemon Yellow, they did capture it. It didn't even have a tongue in one of the gens, which was really, really cool. Gen 6, they just made it upright, kind of like the normal one. Gen 1, they didn't capture it really well. They should have probably put its tongue up in the air. It's Lickitung. I really have a problem when they don't do its tongue right, if you haven't noticed already. That definitely put it in the top 10 worst for me, just because of its tongue. Jeez. Oh, jeez. Number 6, we have Exeggutor. First impression, this looks like a couple of poached eggs sprinkled with weed, a pinch of crack, and a dollop of smack. Holy shit, what the fuck were they thinking when they made this? This is meant to be like kid-proof. It looks so high, and don't get me started on its left foot that looks like Kermit the Frog. They actually figured this out a little bit better in Pokemon Yellow, and it was fine as the gens moved on, and keeping it that upright stance to Gen 6, it still looked very, very bad in its back sprite in Gen 1, and they did actually improve it, I will give it that, and they took out the coconuts in that gen, which was quite interesting, and finally in Gen 5, as most of the sprites did, the whole back sprite, you could see the body. This definitely was the reason this Pokemon made it onto the list. It looks so high, like look at its face, damn. Number 5, we have Chansey. It looks like an out of proportion egg, pardon the pun, and its foot is actually way bigger than its arm. Like, what the heck's up with that? And its eyes are just like back to front 66. It's like, what the hell? It actually looks here like a pink Poliwag. Take away the egg. They did improve it in Pokemon Yellow, which was good. They needed to. It's throughout the gens, its sprite actually changed not very much at all. It was pretty much the same, so it wasn't very interesting to say the least. Its back sprite, however, it was pretty spot on to what it needed to be. I mean, it looked a little bit chubby, but that's how Chansey, well, it was pretty chubby, but that's how it kind of is anyway. With its back sprite, it didn't really change either, but as usual, in 5th gen, they brought the whole of back of Chansey there. Pretty much for Chansey, its out of proportion body, it's really large foot, which looks like a pencil, gave it number 5th position on my list. Number 4 is quite interesting and bad to say the least. We have Koffing. Now, first glance at Koffing, like just a quick glance, you know, what's wrong with it other than its goofy face? If you look at it closely, its skull and bones are actually on its head, where its eyes and mouth are down the bottom. Now, these two things actually need to be swapped around at least, or make the eyes centered and the skull and crossbones at the bottom. That's a really, really big mess up there, because it's, you know, that little skull and crossbones are what we signify coughing and wheezing as. Now, other than them being flying purple balls of warty smoke, but they actually improved it in Yellow, which was fine, and over the gens, its sprite really hasn't changed too much. I mean, they really can't do too much with it. They can put it on an angle, they can change the colour of the smoke, they could probably change the tone of like the colour purple. This was cool. Koffing's smoke actually wasn't even in it, which was really interesting. It was sort of like the intro before, as we saw Lickitung with no tongue. But pretty much in 6th gen, they just changed the smoke to quite a dull looking yellow, which I didn't like too much. Looking at back sprites, I mean, there's not a hell, I'll give them this, there's not a hell of a lot you can do. You can put like a little purple ball there with smoke coming out of it. Really, all you could do was make its whole body the sprite, and that's about it. There wasn't much to do. They did a cool side angle of, I nearly called it wheezing then. They did a cool side angle, but as I said, there's not much you can do other than changing the colour of smoke and the body, or making him a hell of a lot smaller from behind, as they did in 5th gen here. But the big muck up here was the skull on the head, and just everything was back to front. Like, can you imagine if on some of the other Pokemon, if you swap some of their features around, it'll look completely goofy. That definitely puts this up high on my worst sprite list. This next Pokemon sprite is pretty damn creepy and bad at the same time. Looking at Mew, it's disgusting. Its legs are so skinny, it looks very skeleton-like. Its arm is coming out of its head, its other one too. It looks like something out of Alien, for like Alien vs Predator. I don't know if you watched that movie, but it looks exactly like that. Its eyes are so mean. Even in Pokemon Yellow, it's got like these really, really pronounced eyebrows. They actually made its feet so big in Yellow too. At least they tried. But in Crystal and the following ones, they did actually improve it. Mew sleeping there was pretty interesting. Its back sprite looks like Shuckle's having a good time with Ditto, but they did actually improve that as long. This sprite was absolutely crazy. That 5th gen one, if you've seen it before, man, you know exactly what I mean. But for Mew, its evil alien skeleton look and creepy ass arms coming out of its head definitely put it on the top worst sprites. Number 2 is really, really fucked up. It's Golbat. If you look at its face and it's what is that tongue? Why is there like huge gouges of saliva coming off it? That is just creepy. Its eyes are like squished. They're not even proportioned properly. Its body is like, its mouth and body is like stretched. It's got these little 2 feet poking out from its mouth. Its wings are like all over the shop. Man, it's completely messed up. This is probably one of the most messed up sprites I have ever seen. They fixed it up in Pokemon Yellow, thank God. Its sprites aren't the most interesting. I mean, you can't do... That's pretty... I like that one. It's quite cute, that one. Gen 6 was a bit boring. Its back sprites, now it actually looks like a Zubat. Its back sprites were just really, really boring. I actually quite like when they brought this one in with putting its wing in. That looked really cool, adding that one in. And finally in 5th gen they put its whole body in so you could see both its wings were pretty cool. But when I see Golbat I think of this, and this is just creeping me the hell out, and this definitely makes a very high position on my top 10 list. Okay, number 1. So being a bit of a boxer myself since 8 years of age actually, bet you didn't know that one. This Pokemon I quite liked, but looking at its image, it doesn't seem all too bad at first, but if you look closer, break it down into parts. The Togekiss is actually watching the Dodu take a massive shit. Look at it! Like, there's no Hitmonchan there, it's just Togekiss watching Dodu take the biggest shit of his life. Wow! Looking at the sprites going into the gens, Gen 1 and 2 onwards, they did improve it there. In Gen 2, they actually gave him like a pink look with pink gloves and pink skirt and pink shoes. Yeah, I laughed at that one too. But with its sprites, they were pretty basic after that one. Its back sprite looked a bit funny. They should have probably put its gloves in there a little bit more, I'd say. And of course, then with the pink look again. But it didn't really change too much from its back sprites. Finally, in Gen 5, putting its whole thing in body. So it just cannot be unseen. It cannot. This definitely takes the cake for the worst sprite slash funniest too. I'll give it that. That's about all for this Pokemon. I mean, I can't think of anything else. That is the main reason why I put it here. It was very funny, but bad at the same time. Really hope you guys enjoyed this one. This was very fun to do, and I love looking back at the old sprites and see how they've actually grown over the gens, as well as their back sprites. If you have a top 10 you'd like me to do, make sure you leave your comment in the comment section below. As usual, highest thumbs up comment will be the winner. Also, I'm going to do some really interesting ones. If you've got something like a really cool top 10 to do, I could pick it out as a little mystery pick as well. Also, one quick thing, if you're wondering if I've done a top 10 or not, please take note after this video in the outro. All you have to do is click in the main screen and it'll show you all the top 10s that I've done. That's about it, guys. Really enjoyed doing this video. Hope you found it entertaining. Peace out.